that someone is actually online. That's all. You don't know where he is. You don't know what he's doing. So you don't have to saturate the privacy issue.
Well, but in the cell phone world, there's presence goes into other things that, you know, geographically they know where you are.
Right.
You know, you're not in Mountain View, you're up in San Francisco.
It will only be the cell phone rate. It will not be the other.
His point was how much do they, you know, can a cell phone operator eventually push back through other services?
Right, and the answer is they can push back whatever they want, right? I mean, so yes, in a sense you're right, they don't have to do that, but they can and they probably will because they have it. They have a lot of data about you when you turn your cell phone on.
You don't have to use it.
Yeah, they don't have to use it. Now your location may be not so important, but whether you're on the phone or not, right? That's you know that might be useful because I don't want to contact you if I know that you're talking to somebody, right? And like when I'm on my keyboard, you know, if I've been inactive for a while, it shows up and automatically it says you've been active for so long. And when I start typing, you know, it's active again. This is automatic. I don't have to do anything for everybody to know whether I'm working or not, right? So some people think that's invasion of privacy because I can just monitor when people are working or not, or when they leave. But I can also set manual status, right? I can actually go out of my way and say I am at a meeting right now, or I am at lunch, right? You know, here's where to reach you. So there's also a manual status that you can voluntarily say, here's where I am, or here's what I'm doing to those people that you've allowed to look at that stuff. So that's the other issue is, you know, is it okay if it's just people that you've allowed to look at you? You know, is that, you know, I don't want just anybody to know where I am or what I'm doing, but it's okay for certain people to know. And so maybe that's the trade-off, right? And maybe that's about buddy lists and so on, and inviting people and things like that. And it also might be nice to selectively at certain times say, you know, okay, I'm going to group people, and at this point I don't want this group to know where I am, or I want to make it look like I'm offline or something like that. You know, that gets a little tricky depending on who ultimately has control, because if these are enterprise systems, you know, again, the enterprise owns that, and some administrator can ultimately probably go in there and look exactly what's going on regardless of what you've said.
Also the case that we faced this with ISDN many years ago in trying to do caller identification, automatic number identification. There was a variation on whether or not you could supply information that was not necessarily authenticated information. Just in the same way as with buddy lists, people can lie about being on or not by saying, no, I'm not really here when they're listening into a chat room or something like that directly. They are unauthenticated, claiming to be something that they're not. Whereas in the case of a cell phone location, now we're talking about something that might be authenticated for the purposes of supplying access to the nearest gas station or something like that. And that might have a contractual part. There might be an agreement between a cell phone provider and a referral, sales referral, for example, to that particular gas station, where they must insist on having it authenticated.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those kind of examples, right? I mean, you know, when you use your credit cards or whatever, you know, all of what you buy is being reported to other people. They track all that stuff. Every time I buy food at the supermarket, they know exactly how bad a diet I'm on, and you know, they just send me a letter that says your cholesterol's too high. They don't even bother, you know, with anything else. So yeah, I mean, we probably don't even realize how much of our stuff is really being tracked. I have a chief security architect that works for me. He actually teaches at UCLA, and he is so paranoid about all of that stuff. I mean, he will never give his social security number, even when, you know, specifically asked. He will never give his driver's license number. He doesn't want his kids' pictures ever taken digitally because somebody might post it on the web. I mean, he's very paranoid about anything that can track him. I think that's what happens when you know too much, you know, about security, because you know, at some point you gotta do something, otherwise your life becomes very difficult. But yeah, it's that's going to be an interesting thing. Is how much, and it's really up to the vendors, up to the products, and so on, as far as what data they allow and so on. You know, I think I mean, my own personal experience is my productivity, and IM is very nice because you can be doing multiple things at the same time. People could be all over the country or world for that matter. You know, collaboration goes up. It's just, you know, I really didn't use it before. I used like phone and talk and that stuff way back when, but not really on a really daily basis, you know, that I do now. And sometimes it's really a necessity when your people are 3 time zones away and so on. And it's also nice because you can, again, I think this presence part is important. You can see exactly, if you know a bunch of people know the answer, and you can look and see who's online, you can go exactly right to that person and ask them exactly that question. You don't post a mail to a big list and then have either a bunch of people waste their time looking at the answer, or everyone thinking everyone else answered but didn't reply to the whole list, or any of the other things that could go wrong. In Microsoft, I remember this during the orientation, one of the big things they make a big deal about is don't do reply all. Don't resend the message to everybody on the list. And of course, everyone does that anyway, and you get all these big email trails. But they had a real big deal about their email system there. You know what they run. Enterprise class IM actually is better security than email because at least it's being thought about. Email we know has been around forever, and we all know, as we saw before, nobody's really been using security of the email because it's just too hard to use. So at least the enterprise class IM products probably have better security than email systems do. At least email, if you're talking about going across the internet. Certainly if you're using like All Exchange or All Notes or whatever, they have security within the system itself. But as soon as you try to send it outside, that's just a clear message, and that's it. You don't know anything about it. IM, nice thing about it, very easy to use. I mean, even my boss can figure out how to use this thing. It's just, it's a natural thing. If you can type, you can do it. And we all know the kiddies are already brought up on this thing. I don't have to teach them something new. In fact, they're teaching a lot of us how to use it. So, IM, it is here, and I don't think it's going anywhere. I think the biggest issue is going to be the standard. The enterprise, I mean, the numbers on IM in the enterprise, I'm not a big numbers fan from those analysts because, I don't know, they just make up stuff. But empirical, I mean, just looking around, you know it yourselves. I mean, people are starting to use it. They're talking about they're using it in the enterprise. It's coming. It's going to be used, and I've heard a lot of people, they have good things to say. They can see the benefits. Sometimes I think we're a little early in some of the curves of how we can use it really well as far as customer experience and that stuff. So I think people are right now looking at it, using it internally within the organization, but we're still early to using it between an enterprise or business and their consumers. But I think that's a few years away once we get over this kind of hump we are in the market where people aren't really spending money on new technology, new innovation. But I think once they figure it out, they're going to realize that's much, much cheaper than call centers. The big differences between public and enterprise class really are the security, the controls, and being able to comply with regulations. If you're in a regulated industry, you have to be very scared about just the straight old public IM systems. Because even if you have a gateway, at the end of the day, it's still going to go out to these systems, and from that point on, you don't really know what's happening. And you're putting a lot of your trust and faith in these other organizations who don't exactly have a good track record for doing things around security. A lot of, like I said, there's a lot of people have just downloaded IMs in their work without, the approval or the blessing of the CIOs and the IT groups, and that's causing problems. They're trying to figure out what ports do I turn off my firewall to turn this thing off, and it's proving to be a little more difficult than they thought. It's not just just flip this thing off and it's all gone. It's there's a lot of ways around it, and people are figuring it out, and they're switching. If they think, they figured out we're using well, we'll switch over to Yahoo because that does it a little bit differently, and that way we can get around them. So there's like this battle between the people, who are trying to use it because they whether they're using it for good or evil, I don't know, but they're trying to use it. Then you have the IT groups who are spending all their time trying to stop them from using it. So until they, kind of all agree that they're spending their time spinning their wheels, and it's kind of a waste. But at the end of the day, it's going to be these standards. That's going to be the key. If we can agree on the standards, and also the big vendors who essentially own all the communities can agree on the standards and agree to open things up because it makes the world a better place, then that's when we're really going to get to what we think of when we think of email ubiquity. And so there's a lot of hurdles there because it's not just technical, there's also business issues. And I think it's going to be the business issues that are going to be the bigger issues there. And every vendor has their own philosophy about things like privacy, invasion, and so on. Who do I allow to see what, and how do I control this stuff? And there's going to be a lot of work for them to do just to implement all that stuff if they ever do open this up. Because they're going to want to, I would think they would want to let their users ultimately control who can see what and so on. And while it might work okay in their system, it's going to be a lot harder when they're going across these other systems and so on. Especially if the standards don't even support that. Then you're back to square one. Now we got to negotiate with each other to figure out how do we even do that, because the standards that we're talking about don't even talk about, those kind of issues. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to be thought about. You have a vertical markets like the financial guys. They came with their own organization to try to force the vendors to come up with a standard, because they're saying, well, we're the biggest bank. We got lots of money. We have your money, and we want you to have a standard. And that's, they wrote a one-page document saying, here, this IM should be this. And, I don't know how many people have read it. There were a lot of typos in it, so I'm gathering not too many. But that's kind of where they are. They're trying to put their muscle as an industry behind this thing and saying, we want IM, but we also realize that you guys all have to agree, and so we're going to try and force you to agree. And they're having limited success, I would say, right now. But it's also early. Well, that's it. Longer than I thought. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
Any quick questions? Terry, we'd like to recognize the effort people put in coming down here, so please accept this award. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming. I think it was a fascinating discussion, and something we'll have to keep watching for time in the future and see where this goes and how it blends into using the internet for all kinds of purposes. The next meeting will be on the 4th Tuesday, which is just before Thanksgiving in November, and PQ will come here and talk about something you were talking about, traffic shaping and managing the bandwidth on your networks and making sure it isn't all you. I don't think they're worried about IM. I think they're much more worried about P2P, but trying to manage that situation. Does anyone have anything they'd like to announce? Any projects underway they'd like to talk about or anything like that? Okay. Well, then I thank you very much for coming, and if anyone wants to talk to the Computer History Museum, I'll step over to the side and talk about that. Thanks for coming.